Now we're going to head into the Zoom room and our phone lines, where we are going to go in more detail and in more discussion about the disappearing deficit. We're going to bring in our Lester Carlson into the Zoom room. We also have...
Afternoon, everyone. Good morning.
Good morning. We have DOA Director Mr. Edward Birn. Good morning, Mr. Birn. And we're also bringing in through the phone line Mr. Lester Carlson, the director of BBMR. Good morning, Lester.
Good morning, Sabrina.
Good morning. All right. I'll let Lester Lacanto take over from here.
Please do.
All right. So, yeah, we did have this conversation yesterday, Ed, albeit briefly, but let's start from the top. Can you explain once again how we arrived at about a little over $1 million now? The deficit was reduced from when the governor took over in, I guess it was 2 years ago. You started at $83 million deficit. Now it's down to about $1 million and change. How did we get here?
Yes, well, deficit reductions don't happen by accident. You have to work at them. So and recall that the budgets that are passed by the legislature are balanced budgets. So if you did nothing and everything came in line with the budget that is passed by the legislature, there would be no change in the deficit or the funds up. So you actually have to work to get a deficit reduced. And in our case, it was a mixture of improving incoming funds, and in particular, over the last 2 years, this administration has been successful in maximizing the use of federal funds, and that takes the pressure off local funding. But we also were able to save some money by doing things more economically. So when you add those two things into the equation, that's what leads to a budget deficit reduction.
Yeah. As I asked you yesterday, how much of a factor was all the millions, the tens of millions of dollars we have been receiving from the federal government for pandemic relief? How does that factor in? Because that's a lot of money that can help reduce, I imagine, that deficit.
Yes, but please remember, Nestor, that most of this reduction took place before we got the pandemic funds. The latest numbers were through September 30th, 2020, and we didn't get any CARES Act money until late of May in 2020. So the impact of that on 2020 was minimal, and of course it had no impact on 2019, which also was a budget deficit reduction year.
Okay, let's talk about the surplus, and maybe you can bring in your colleague Lester, because he was questioning that yesterday. Lester, I did try to call you back, but you were busy. So talk about that $40-some million surplus and why that's the surplus.
Yeah, picking up on what Edward said.
Lester, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
You want to tackle that, Ed? I don't know where Lester is.
Yes. Well, basically, I mean, it's the reason that I just gave, that the 40 million is a mixture of improved receipts, because we did improve some tax receivables during the course of early 2020 when the economy was actually kind of, booming is not the right word, but it was certainly growing as a result of record numbers of tourist arrivals before the pandemic hit. And you know, once they're here and they pay their taxes, the money's in the bank. But we were also able to save dollars, as I just said, because we were able to use federal dollars, not local dollars, to pay some expenses. And the mixture of that added up to the 42 million that you just spoke about.
And can you explain what you mean by surplus? Because maybe that's where people are kind of questioning it.
Yes. Well, a surplus is where your revenues exceed your expenses. There's an adjustment for transfers in and transfers out that is specific to government accounting. But I mean, that's true of any business or any entity, whether it's private business or government. You obviously strive to make a profit because you still have to pay, for infrastructure improvements, for new infrastructure, we don't want to stand still, and you can only do that if you build up a surplus to do so, or you have to borrow the money. Previously, we borrowed the money. Now we're in the position of being able to refund that borrowing and not have to borrow anymore. We're doing it out of our own efforts.
Okay. So we went from 83 million down to a million and change, and that sounds really good, but what really does that mean?
That means we have to continue working to build up a reasonable balance of funds. Previously, like I said, where we had a deficit, you may have heard the phrase used, deficit spending, right? We had to spend money because we have to keep things going. But if you don't have the funds to do it, all you're doing is building up your liabilities. You're effectively borrowing money from your vendors if you let them age out. So instead of paying them in 30 days like we do now, we were having to make them wait days, maybe even months to get paid out. That's no longer the case. But that's the way you have to operate deficit funding. Once you have a surplus, you don't have to be concerned about that. And the minimal surplus that we have now allows us to pay vendors in 30 days. It allows us to pay tax refunds, within weeks of people filing. All of this is only possible because we paid attention to the numbers, and you measure it by measuring the deficit or the fund balance. But what it means in practice is that you're able to meet your liabilities as they occur and not make people wait.
So there's some people that might think that when they hear a surplus and then they hear that the deficit has been reduced to near nothing, maybe this might be an opportune time to roll back taxes. We talked about this yesterday. You said, no, it's not.
No, it's not.
Right. I mean, yes, some people might argue that, as soon as you see a tiny little slither of a surplus, you should roll back taxes. It's not going to pay for by doing that, you're going to struggle to look for how you're going to pay for the infrastructure. You're always going to be in danger of something happening. We spoke about yesterday about the rainy day fund, and look what happened. The rainy day came, and fortunately we had a cushion in order to deal with that before we got the federal funds to support us, because they didn't, we started the pandemic in March and we didn't get the federal funds until late May. So it's always wise to have a cushion to stop interruption to government services. Everybody relies on government services. We can't stop, and really, if you reduce taxes, we're putting ourselves back into the danger zone. Not that I don't think that a lot of discussion is about BPT. BPT is at 5%. The governor thinks that's a good number to keep the rate at. It's pretty low compared with some of the other states who tax anywhere from 4 to 10%, even some more than 10%. So I think it's a fair balance. But most of all, if you want government services and you want them to be efficient and you want them to be prompt, don't starve them of funding.
So you don't think the government's fiscal condition currently warrants rolling it back to where it was maybe a year before the pandemic, when we had to adjust it to 5?
I think we have to wait and see. Right? We've just reported the numbers to September 30, 2020. We're going to obviously be shortly finalizing and finally reporting on the numbers to September 30, 2021. The EITC money that we spoke about and the child tax money, which certainly will help, we haven't got yet, right? And we're not going to get until calendar 2022. So it's fine to anticipate some of these these benefits that we're going to get, but we haven't got them yet. And any day, I certainly hope it doesn't happen, but we have to be prepared for emergency expenditure of any time at on any day. So let's just be patient and see how things turn out when we report, with a year that's really covering the pandemic. 2020 didn't really cover the pandemic. Right. 2021 certainly will.
All right. Okay, really quickly now, we ask Crystal this every day. Did we get the ARP money yet?
I don't believe so. I've been so busy talking to you and other people, I haven't had a chance to check it. But I'm sure my staff would have told me if they had a large sum of money in. It's on its way. It'll get here. And when it gets here, you'll all know.
All right. Director of Administration, Ed Birn. Sabrina, back to you.
Thanks, Nestor and Mr. Birn and Lester.
All right. Mr. Birn, I know Sabrina has a couple of questions for you before you go.
Yeah, okay. I understand there's a hearing this afternoon, but I wanted to see if you had any update on this hearing that's happening in the district court with respect to Take Care wanting to be removed from the bid language for the contract agreement with GRMC.
Take Care has filed they've only filed, it's a hearing this afternoon, as you say, a temporary restraining order in district court. Because it's a legal matter, I don't think I should comment any further than that. There's a hearing, and the government will make its case at that hearing.
But if this TRO is granted, do you believe that it would cause a pause or halt in the health insurance negotiations?
Well, that's obviously the intent of the temporary restraining order. Oh. But I'm sure our lawyers feel we will prevail.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Sabrina.
All right, anything else?
No, I think we have Chima.
Oh, we do. Yes, we do.
Were telling me.
Okay, right on. I mean, if you have another one, we could give another one, and then we'll go to Chima.
No, I'm fine.
Okay. Thank you, Ed.
Thanks. Have a good day, everybody.
Thank you, Nestor. Lester, sorry, I don't know why.
Nice to be on, man.
Yeah, it was good. Thanks for hanging out. That's Lester, Nestor.
Hey, Lester, I called you back yesterday.
All right. Oh, there you go. That was fun. 8:23, Thursday, May 20th, because they got their budget hearing in just about an hour.